Why not?
I got to do that one. We're in the business of government, and every business has to pay for its assets. Because we are a service organization, people are our asset. And in order to be able to keep people in the chairs, in the seats, in the squad cars, and out on the street, they have to receive compensation that is proper to the work that they're doing. Our organization chooses from different markets depending on what the position is. In the case of a city manager, for example, you do national recruitments. So you typically benchmark yourself to a national wage scale. When you're trying to recruit police officers, you look at where they're coming from. We look at comparison cities of where we pull the market, where we pull these folks from. And that market will determine what those wages are. Except in our case, even though we are the second largest city in Colorado, we used to be, until I got on board, we used to be paid right at the middle of the market of those benchmark cities that we showed here on the Front Range. Because that's where we pulled from, but we only paid the average even though we're a much larger city with much more complexity of task. Well, what's happened is that because of the financial crisis, we've said, city employees, we can't even pay you at the average anymore. We're going to start paying you below that. So our employees now, for example, police officers, are paid 10% below the market. The police officers as a whole, I met with them, talked to them about our fiscal situation. They said, you know what, we'll stick through it a little bit longer. Now we're looking at, for another year, no changes in compensation. In fact, because of the cost of health care, because of the cost of pension, et cetera, their package is actually being reduced in addition to that 10% below the market. And you'll see in the paper today there is a proposal, and council members are talking about it because they have to talk about all the options, that there is a council member who's saying, get angry about this, get angry about what we're paying our employees. Well, the reality of it is I am having difficulty filling the seats right now and doing the job. And if we lay off the 234 that I know we're going to have to, 435 people being able to run your organization and provide excellent service is very difficult to do. And then you take them below 10%, and the proposal is for an additional 10%. 20% below the market for employees who can go anywhere up and down the Front Range. Well, some council have said to me, well, our employees won't leave. They're leaving now. They're going out in droves. When I walked in, 235 people walked out. And it wasn't personal. Maybe some, but most of them not. So that's 600, 700 people. Now, how am I going to run a city and provide service? I have to work harder and faster because I don't have the overtime to have the non-exempt people be able to pick up that gap that's left by all those people exiting. So now I have to pay my managers more? No, managers aren't going to get paid more. In fact, they're going to now be paid 17% below the market. They're walking out the door because now not only do they have the extra hours, and I spent my first 9 months doing 90 and 100-hour work weeks until I passed out, bonked my head, had a few other problems because I was exhausted. That's what my organization is doing. That's probably what your organizations are doing. So doing that to them is going to assure me that I can not only not deliver, but I won't even be able to cover my liability exposure as a result of it. We can do it, but it will have a worse impact, and in the end it'll cost me more. Because it takes a year for me to get a police officer in the door to the point that they're actually able to be on the street. 1 year it takes to do that. And last night the police chief told our council that it takes about $500,000 to get that police officer to that point. So if they exit, which they can, then I'm going to have to pick up the cost and the expense, have the downtime of that loss. So it's strictly a business decision as to whether or not we want to do it. And to me, I'll do it either way because I work for the council and I do what they feel is best. But those will be my issues when we balance that very difficult situation. Pension issues, council is looking at it. Council is concerned about it. There are some extreme limitations in terms of para, the state system, where we don't have the option of getting out of it. What we would have to actually do is step out as an organization, undo any service, and then create it as a new service under a separate entity in order to be able to get out of that. And Jane, I see our council member has a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Councilmember Purvis.
I'd just like to add to that answer. In fact, City Council did look at that question, as the City Manager has indicated. We had a presentation recently from the para representative, the person in charge. And my recollection, first of all, we need to understand that the city runs, I think now, 3 pension plans for public safety employees. There's an old hire, there's a new hire, there's a new hire plan. And so that takes care of those. The good news is that the police and fire pension plans are unfunded the smallest amount. Okay. The second issue is the para-employees. And I took 2 things, I think, away from the presentation from the para person. And the question was just exactly that. Can we dump a defined benefit plan and move to a defined contribution plan? 2 requirements for getting out of para. 1, you have to have a vote of the employees who are affected, and it's a huge vote. It's like a supermajority, I think 75 or 80% have to agree to move out of a defined benefit plan into a defined contribution plan. My gut says that's a non-starter. The second requirement from para is if they do in fact vote to get out, they say, okay, you've got this unfunded portion of your plan, write us a check, which today is how much, Ms. Graft?
Boy,
how many
I'm
tens
sorry,
of millions of dollars?
I couldn't tell you. Yes, absolutely.
And it's, you know, it's a write the check today and you can leave the door. But unless you're prepared to write that check, you're tied to the plan. So we have looked at it, and financially and I think politically in dealing with the employees, it's a non-starter.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis. Next question. John?